Hello and welcome to the After Hour interviews with our Vstorm engineers. Paweł, we wrote this article on small language models that was just recently published on our blog, and I wanted to speak with you about the key takeaways from this article. But before we begin, tell us, what is your connection with small language models? What do you do with them?
So After Hours, I'm a co-creator of Bielik Minitron model, which is the smaller version of the Bielik 11B, our flagship model in the Bielik AI community, which I'm a part of. And I'm also a big fan of personal models which I can use on my local machine.
So you're not only a user, you're a creator of those models.
Co-creator, yes, but depends on how you take it.
Which makes you a best person to answer a few questions I have on small language models. So the article paints this picture that large language models are universal enough to be embedded in agentic AI workflows, but they're only a beginning for many customers.
Yep.
Because the small language models are good enough for the job too.
Yeah, they are more than good enough in most of the cases. So we brought up this paper, large language models compared to small language models. You can use small language model in about 80% of the tasks and get the same results basically, or close to the ones you would get with this the frontier language models of Claude, OpenAIs, and so on. Because ask yourself honestly, what do you do most of the time with large language models, I should say? It's summarization, it's reviewing, it's checking if the thing you've created is well enough written. So it's simple text work. And small language models are more than capable enough to make the same jobs too in similar fashion or in similar quality. And inherently, given those are small and usually can be launched on your hardware, which you already have, you are inherently having this solution a secure solution at the end. It's inherently secure on your machine.
Which is exactly what customers ask for, since we speak with small and medium businesses. And this is the concern that they share, is that they want to keep their data private and they don't want to lose their competitive moat, so to speak. In many cases, customers want to put language models to quite well-defined tasks. I would say that those tasks are context-bound. I think that's a prerequisite for small language models, isn't it?
When the problem gets evolves and gets pinpointed, that we know exactly what we need to do, what's the input, what's the output, then we can switch from large language model, which is a Swiss Army knife. We can take a scalpel, which is a small language model, and perform surgical operations to make the task done.
Which is a great analogy, because when we open projects, we tend to use large language models because they are flexible enough.
And easy to use.
They're like Swiss Army knife, as you said. But when, during the engagement, we see that we understand well the context of those models functioning, we can use the scalpel, as you said.
Yep.
It's a surgery. You just need one tool for that. You don't have to have a variety of options at hand. Right?
Yeah, and that's the case we had with our customer from Middle East, where they decided, due to the nature of the data they were interfering with, they decided that they need to switch to something that they can host by themselves on their hardware in their server room. We tested like dozens of models on their capabilities in terms of function calling, in terms of translation from English to Arabic and forth, because this was one of the key requirements. And also, since this system was quite complex and there was a requirement for fast responses, we need to also assess the model's quality and speed at the end. And it turned out that some smaller models with smaller, I'd say 30, 20-ish B params were good enough, like the models which were close to 100 or even more params, given the bounds we had on time, language, and response times.
And tell us about model routing. Oftentimes we have situations where there's not one model being used for agentic workflow, but several models. How difficult that is from the engineering standpoint?
It mostly depends on the problem at the end, because in the paper, as we said in the beginning, it's usually bound to the output quality that you want to get and whether it's worth to fight for, I don't know, 2-3% of the total output quality and using a model that's 10 times bigger than the one used before. So let's assume that you have a 30B model which allows you to reach, I don't know, 85-90% threshold of the output you want to get, and then the next step in this quality would be like 90 to 3, so 2-3 points more, percentage points, but the model would need to be like 5 to 10 times bigger. So is it worth? I do not say so.
So you mentioned the Pareto rule being applicable to small language models because in 80% of cases you can use small language model for the job instead of larger language model, but you also apply Pareto rule to scaling of capabilities of those models. Please explain that.
Yeah, so the article mentions, as you said, that there is something that we can call a efficiency coefficient that calculates the model's capabilities and the amount of power and watts that you need to use to make those things happen, basically. Yeah. To get those output, get this quality of the model. So between 2023 and 2025, it has risen approximately 10 times, 9.5 to be exact, I assume. So it only shows that the current generation of local models that we have are way better than we basically think they are, in my opinion.
They're catching up quite quickly.
Yep. I tend to use local models first because they are like right here. I don't need any additional API keys and generate any additional costs. And the quality of the input that you put through those local models, you can see it on the output too. So as we said, big models have big capabilities, so they forgive you some things. But when you use the small model, you need to like make those steps up to make the inputs better to get the output that you require to.
Which follows the logic that we expressed earlier, that we tend to start projects with large language models, get the solution up to a certain level, let's say, of accuracy. And then if you understand the context of solution well, you can swap those models to smaller language models.
And optimize it even further. Especially if you look at the really small models that are like a few billion parameters, so like very small, and they are quite cheap to tune for the certain task. A colleague of mine did he works in legal AI, let's call it this way, and they achieved over 95% of correct classification with the model that has been fine-tuned or on their domain in which they work on a daily basis. And the model out of the box had like 60-ish% quality, so they managed to make it over 50% better from the box.
And these were small language models?
This was 1.5B model, so like a tiny one, I'd even say.
Okay, nice. So they run at a fraction of cost, which takes me to the question of cost, because the biggest issue that our customers see early in the project is that, okay, what's the cost going to be of running those solutions? And we have customers that crunch through thousands of dollars per day, even $30,000 in token use per day.
That's a lot.
So this possibility of running workflow on small language models gets you out of this trap.
Yeah, and it also depends on how much are you willing to spend on the hardware to run those models, because you need some silicon to make work of it.
Of course.
And for me today, there's only one answer when it comes to entry level, like owning your AI on your local machine. It's whatever it's based on GB10 by NVIDIA. It's a very potent chip on Blackwell architecture that allows you to have about 110, 115 gigabytes of VRAM to run your models. So given this, and the tools like quantization and so on, you are able to run like up to 30-ish B models, which are very competent, which can help you on daily basis in coding, which can process your internal documents, which can see, so they have vision modality, so they can read through docs, like invoices, internal documents and so on. They can build your own knowledge base, and you have this under your roof, basically, under your desk, on your desk, I'd even say.
What is the ballpark of the cost of such silicon?
In USD, it would be like 5,000 USD, something like this, even cheaper, I'd say, for an entry level. Let's put a full-scale GPU, if you say so, being L40S, I'd say, is the entry level, so it's like 10K for one, and you need also some hardware around it, so it's like a PC basically, or server to run it, where the GB10 based solutions are like pocket PCs, They're like a notebook, and they cost around 4 to 5K per piece.
Which takes me to the last question I wanted to ask you. It's a question related to limitations, because large language models, they evolved initially well to allow for tool use, to allow for structured context use, which is superb at this point.
Yeah.
Small language models are catching up, but they do have their limitations. What is the distance between the tooling and the context use between large language models and small language models?
I'd say it varies on a task. So if your task is quite simple, so it's mostly working with text, transforming it in one way or another, extracting something from it, or using context that you have, I'd say that small language models are right up there. So they are like, you can feel their breath on your back. But when it comes to more complex tasks, when it comes to like physics, maths, hardcore reasoning, like very long chain of thoughts, then you need this horsepower, the firepower that the big model just inherently has. So I'd say that if there should be a rule of thumb, I'd say start with a large language model because it's easier. Then try to go to local ones, do some research on it, which should be better. Benchmark it on your own application, on your task that you want to perform on, and then assess whether it's good for you to stay with large language models and be not as secure, that some of the data may leak, the data may be not where you want it to be, and so on, or you invest in small language models which will run on either some hardware that you like rent or you buy your own, and start small, and then you can scale up because those solutions are very easily scalable. So I'd say start with large, then try it with a small, give it a try, and you may be amazed in some cases.
Good suggestions. I think it's worth saying that we do that for our customers on the projects. And I was actually thinking about a number of projects where we already discuss swapping large language models into something smaller, more efficient.
Some we did, actually.
There's a lot of those projects that qualify for using small language models. Thank you for additional context to the article, and I hope the piece that we co-authored together will be interesting for everyone. You can always contact us, contact Paweł to get some more information.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me, and bye-bye.